Good evening and welcome back to the fourth round of the Race Department Grand Prix Championship here from Brasilia. The drivers are currently on their formation lap, and while they are, let's just have a quick look at the championship standings with 2 rounds remaining in this series. Ferdinand Lechner, with his stubby win so far, is on top with 318, ahead of Legale on 285. David Junt is in third on 260, ahead of Dan Long on 225. Tobias Marquardt stands fifth with 175, ahead of Dan O'Neill with 160. Just 4 points behind that is Ryan Seltzer with 156, who's unfortunately not here tonight, and he's just ahead of Craig Patterson, just 1 point further back with 155. Hellenic Racing Association's Johnny Staforos lines up 9th position in those standings with 119, ahead of Terrell Dahlberg. For Ajira Racing, who's currently in 4th position tonight, so a good result for him. He's level with Barnes Waring in the championship standings on 105. 5 points behind that is Tom Watts on 100 points. Then we have the 2 Kinker Racing cars level on 97, Oliver Louis and Jean-Pierre Père. And in 15th position, rounding out that top 15, is Jerry Mook on 85. So we've got just a few seconds left before the drivers line up on the grid, and I'll leave it to Dan to take you through how they will line up.
So very quickly then, as ever, Ferdinand Lechner starts on pole position ahead of David Junt. Although it's changed row 2 and backwards with Carlos Albert lining up 3rd, and Terrell Dahlberg, a fantastic lap for him, starting on 4th as the drivers get into position onto the grid. Then Mark Breslin and Matt Legale ran up row 3 with Antonio Navarro, Dan O'Neill, Christian Zorner and Tom Watts running up top 10. Stathoros, Patterson, Louis, Manos in 14th place, Jean-Pierre Père in 15th, Matt Cook, Thomas Padzi, Thomas Lambert, Tobias Marquardt, Joseph Rice, Steve Legale, Andrew Harper, Jeremy Mook and Wozniak is starting at the back of the 24 car grid as we are about to get underway for round 4 of the Race Department Grand Prix Championship here at Race Department.
Yes, 51 laps ahead of them of Brasilia. And we've got Ferdinand Lechner on pole, his teammate David Junt alongside him. All drivers lined up on the grid, ready to go. And when those 5 lights go out, we're going to have 24 cars hurtling down into turn number 1. Who is going to get the upper hand? Are they all going to make it through safely? Had a long hold here on the grid. Looks like Carlos Albert trying to get into position there on his grid. Just a few seconds to go until we start round 4 of the Race Department Grand Prix Championship here from Brasilia. And the 5 lights are now coming on. 3, 4, 5. And we're green. And it's a great start from Lechner. He gets a wonderful start, in fact. Jumps.
But a poor start from Junt.
Yes, Junt, a very poor start. Already being challenged by Terrell Dahlberg, who's jumped Carlos Albert as they go through turn number 1. And it looks like they're all going to get through. A few drivers off the circuit there in the background trying to get through. But Lechner it is who leads ahead of David Junt, who retains that 2nd position despite being brutally challenged by Terrell Dahlberg. 4th position. Side by side between Albert and Navarro. Yes, Staforos, a spinner there all the way down to the back of the field, and Oliver Louis looked like he had to start from pit lane as well. So 2 drivers having troubles here on the opening lap, but it is Ferdinand Lechner who leads by over a second from David Junt. And just like in the first 3 rounds, Dan, we've had a very good start from Lechner, and he's gotten ahead at the start and got a little bit of a lead.
Well, his starts have been much improved since the first round of the season, but he has got away cleanly so far with David Junt still in 2nd place despite the struggle. Again, the mighty 4th guys just struggling with their starts all season. Terrell Dahlberg, though, really punching above his weight in 3rd place at the moment. And good to see him going. Antonio Navarro up to 4th with Carlos Albert in 5th. Matt Legale 6th. Breslin and O'Neill trying to go side by side into the final few corners on the first lap out of 51 here to establish the 4th round of the championship underway. Looking tight in the midfield already. And Ferdinand Lechner doing what he does best. He's just about to come over the line now, but it is a 2.5 seconds to the good ahead of David Junt. You just can't fault them, can you?
No, by the looks of this, it's going to be a very simple race for Lechner and Junt, but Dahlberg is out of the woods as well, but who isn't out of the woods is Carlos Albert, because you've got Matt Legale up the inside, and Legale takes that position. They're going to run side by side over the curb. Albert will have the slipstream here as they head down towards turn number 2, and this is going to be something I think we're going to see quite a lot in this race. But Alba
Dan
under
O'Neill's come
threat
out of
from
nowhere there.
O'Neill.
He's trying to challenge him through. He goes.
Yes, the double slipstream working beautifully for Dan O'Neill down into turn number 2, and he regains that 6th position. Alba losing out to 7th position.
And Dan O'Neill in 6th place, still trying to fight for 5th at the moment. The Matlagalle's locked up and he's gone off. Into the wall backwards. How much damage has he sustained? He should be able to continue, but he's going to rejoin nearly in front of someone. You do need to be a lot more careful when you're rejoining in that sort of situation, because that's really when the collateral damage seems to pile up, as we saw a few rounds ago. But luckily that didn't end in tears, and Dan O'Neill through a bit of sheer luck then up to 5th place at the moment. But oh goodness, we've got 2 other people gone up.
He's hit Matt, and he's hit Steve Legalle there as well, and he's hit another driver as well.
What were we saying just a moment ago? I don't understand why sometimes restarts and rejoining is this difficult. You know, you just look in your mirrors and you wait a second. You know, it's interesting when we've had, in fact, discussions on the forums here at Race Department of people saying, well, the AI in the G-Motor 2 based engines aren't realistic because they're just compiling on, yet you know, drivers in organised leagues do stuff like that. I'm sorry, but that can't be acceptable.
Yeah, it's a little bit too ambitious to get back on circuit from Manos Kunglu. Perhaps he was forced into that spin and maybe a little bit annoyed from the other driver as being forced into that spin, but he was off the racing line, so there was no need for him to move onto the racing line. And Steve Legalle, the unfortunate victim of that, looks like he has continued onto his 3rd lap, but possibly with some damage there for the number 91. And Carlos Alba, Christian Zorner and Dan O'Neill alongside Christian Zorner as he head through turn number 2 and up to turn number 3 and through to turn number 4. 76 Dan O'Neill just ahead of Christian Zorner, who's going to surge for that inside in the 37, and he's in a racist pyjamas sandwich because Tom Watts is right behind as well, and Watts looking for that inside line as they come out of turn number 4 and onto the infield section, and this long left-hander, 3 left-handers here, just ever tightening, and O'Neill probably out of the woods just for now, but Christian Zorner definitely not, because he's got a big challenge from behind in the shape of Tom Watts.
He was sifting left, sifting right. He was just looking for that slight edge, a few inches here or there to give a little bit of a nose in at the point. You don't need to push too hard in these early stages. Obviously, you want to let the driver ahead of you know that you're there, and obviously overtaking, you know, fundamental part of motor racing, wouldn't you say? But it's about being patient in these certain situations, because we've seen as we got to a few yellow flags flashing somewhere else in circuit. But
yes,
one of the key things here is just to stay out of trouble. We've seen already in these opening laps, just staying out of trouble is what's going to give you the positions. I mean, Dan O'Neill started in lower down in the top 10 and has caught up significantly compared to what's been going on. So by being patient and by being smart, you can earn more positions than pushing far too quickly and making a mistake, losing time. And we've lost Johnny Stathoros from this race, so he's our first retirement in this race, and Wozniak's been disqualified. The number 24 car has been disqualified from the session, so we'll have to find out from race control what that was for. That could potentially be for the rejoin, we don't know, but we will find out more for you. However, that is going to be quite a big story after the race. Yes,
and we've got battles going on for P10 and 11. Craig Patterson just getting past Matt Cook. He was searching in the infield on the previous lap, and now it seems he has been able to get through. And now Cook under pressure from a few drivers behind Jean-Pierre Père on Tom Lambert's amongst them as they head through on lap number 2. And drivers after that first couple of laps of flurry seem to have just settled down a little bit more now, which is good to see. Matt Legalle on a recovery drive here in 17th. Looking for the inside of Andrew Harper.
And Zorner spun, sorry to interrupt, but Zorner spun, just made a mistake, made contact with Tom Watts, who's then been promoted up a position, and Tobias Marquardt, again another one of our poor qualifiers, who's just jumped up, but unfortunately that was going to look like a really good battle, and as soon as I say that, Tobias runs slightly deep as well as Zorner again.
Yes, and having a few troubles there. Tobias Marquardt off the circuit, rejoins in 14th just ahead of Steve Legalle. 2 LG racing cars running line astern in 15th and 16th, because Matt Legalle has now disposed of Andrew Harper in those last few corners. So at the completion of lap number 4, Ferdinand Lechner is the leader. David Young is in 2nd position as they were at the start. Terrell Dahlberg is in 3rd position, jumped ahead of Carlos Alba, who's been shifted down to 5th, and Dahlberg off the circuit into the barrier.
Oh goodness, he's managed
Just
to get
as
on the
quickly
way.
as that. And Dahlberg now back to 5th, 6th position possibly, as Dan O'Neill comes up behind him very, very quickly. And O'Neill does get through on the inside. Yes, so O'Neill up to 5th position. Dahlberg just the back end, lost the back end through turn 2, which seemed so easy to do. Seeing drivers lose the back end on so many of these corners, and just lost the end, like the back end, spun into the barrier. Luckily, very, very minimal damage here for Dahlberg as it seems, but I lost a lot of ground, lost at least 10 seconds in that, so very unfortunate for Dahlberg, but plenty of time to recover.
Patience is key. What do we keep saying? This is what happens when the tyres maybe not up to their full operating temperature. The base is less than 10 minutes old. You'd think they would be getting slightly closer, but it depends purely on the setup and everything like that. So as they start to make their way now into the lap 5, lap 6 now, out of 51, and Terry Dahlberg still in 6th place, which is a very good result for him. Let's not get that wrong. So as you say, getting closer to the through the race, 6 point something seconds now the gap between Ferdinand Lechner and David Young, 6.5, 6.3 seconds. So Ferdinand really showing why he could potentially be a deserving champion. That's the one thing I need to know, is this race going to be enough for him to win the championship, or would we take it to the finale?
He's got just over 30 points advantage at the moment in that championship, ahead of Matt Legalli, who's currently running in 15th position. So I'm not sure on the point system, but if Ferdinand collects all points here, which I believe is 106, and Legalli is down there on minimal points as he is at the moment, then that might be very difficult, as we have a battle between Jeremy Mook, Christian Zorner and Tobias Marquardt. Zorner on a recovery drive, and once again losing the back end through turn number 2, as we've seen so many drivers do, and just like that he's lost the position to Tobias Marquardt. So Banzai TCC driver of Tobias Marquardt up to 13th position. Zorner still there, but lost another position in what has been a difficult first few laps of this race for him.
And I think part of the reason why they're getting this snap oversteer into the brakes, it could be due to a few things. It could be the way that they're setting the brake bias to try and manage the rear tyres slightly better, but of course they'll be running quite low aero around here to try and get the really quick sections of the circuit. So it could just be that as soon as they push that tyre slightly too much, you lose the mechanical grip as Tobias Marquardt. Good move up the inside, late move, Jeremy Mook, quick slide on, does catch it, but as they lose that mechanical grip and the aerodynamic grip at the same time, it's just too much for the driver to save sometimes. So as Jeremy again brakes very deep, and unfortunately Christian Zorner has tapped him off the circuit. That really was, and almost more contact with Matt Legalli there. So as Christian slowing down to let Jeremy through and gets underway again, which is good to see. Unfortunately, poor Matt Legalli got another piece of contact there which could have been avoided and almost led to more calamity for him, which I couldn't imagine he'd be particularly pleased with. However, they do get away and live to fight another day.
Yes, and this has allowed Steve Legalli to close up, so the LG Racing cars moving up the order. Matt Legalli up to 13th position now, so he was at 15th just a lap ago now because of this battle between Zorner and Mook, which unfortunately ended in disaster for both of them. Legalli up to 13th position. Zorner and Mook, though, able to regain their composure and their battle. Tobias Marquardt, the big benefit from that, up to 12th position after that move into that infield hairpin, which has really benefited him in ways that he probably wouldn't have expected going into that lap, but a lot more beneficial than he would have expected. But he's got Matt Legalli all over the back of him as they head now on lap 7 of 51. Now the battle I was having a look at just a few moments ago is that between Dan O'Neill and Terrell Dahlberg, the recovering Terrell Dahlberg, trying to get back up the order to his 4th position starting grid, or 3rd position as he was at the start of this race, and closing up on the brakes ahead of Dan O'Neill on this very difficult right-hander that leads onto the final 2 corners of the circuit.
It's interesting to see, and I'll tell you else what's quite interesting is the fact that Ferdinand Lechner He's been doing 41s and 42s, and 42.058 his last lap. And then David Yunt doing 44s and 43s. He's just done a 42.9, which is nearly a full second behind 9/10. So it's just seeing how consistent Ferdinand is at the moment, and is really extending this gap. What, by lap 10 it's going to be about 10 seconds.
Yes, around a second a lap is extraordinary progress for Lechner, and really showed why he is in the lead of this championship at the moment. No one has been able to challenge him so far in this series, and so far it looks like no one is going to be able to challenge him in this race either, as Terrell Darberg mounts the pressure even more on Dan O'Neill as they go into turn number 4 and head into the infield here. It's long right-hander with quite a bit of camber. All these out exterior right-handers do have quite a bit of camber, which does help the car turn. But as we've seen so far, it also does have those added negatives, which is that you can easily loop the back end going through the corner. No such problems for Daryl Darberg this time round, and ever closer to Dan O'Neill through this interior of the circuit, and running a little bit wide there, possibly in the dirty air, trying to push that little bit harder to catch up to O'Neill. But Darberg currently on the charge, trying to get up to 5th position. Another slide into that infield hairpin, and really pushing here to try and get back up the field.
Well, he can see him, that's the thing. It's Tero, especially when you sit in his camera, his Dan's not that far away. You just want to try and drag those, as we've been saying, those few extra mile an hour, carrying that little bit extra speed. But it's so easy, especially when you're in a position like this. So, for example, coming from a back marker, it's quite easy to overdrive the car, trying to think, well, actually, I'm not in a position I shouldn't be in. I've got to push as hard as I can just to keep up, and that can lead to really overdriving the car. And Tero needs to just level himself and just make sure that he can do the best job he can and stay where he can and be consistent, because consistency is what wins you the points, not necessarily being the quickest over a lap or 3 laps.
Yes, and in this situation it's the quickest over 51 laps, and Lechner currently the leader of that by 9.4 seconds ahead of David Jones. Another 9 seconds back to Antonio Navarro as Tom Lombards goes for a spin. A very elegant pirouette, I have to say. Regains composure on the racing line, which is very easy, not very easy to do, but made it look very easy there, Lombards. And I was about to say he was closing up on Jean-Pierre Paire, but as it is now, he's not. He's down in 13th position, and that's allowed another position for Legale. Up to 11th now is Matt Legale.
Yeah, so Matt Legale going well at the moment, and as you say, it is a proper, very traditional coming back from the back of the grid. But as we say, he's still got some more focus to make as Tero Dolberg has caught up to Dan O'Neill exponentially and was really nipping at the heels over the last sort of half a lap or so. And as they come over the line once again, Tero is just going to sit and try and potentially make a manoeuvre in the toe, the best position to be in at the moment.
Yes, he's got O'Neill in his sights, and this time no such problems through the infield section, and closer than he has been so far since his small excursion into the barriers. But very quick through turn number 115 miles per hour on corner apex, and now is the chance he gets to unleash all the power from that little engine, and closing up on Dan O'Neill, but not quite enough this time round. And yeah, definitely taking it easier than he was through turn number 2 and under the bridge as they head up the hill now into turn number 3, and then this long right-hander which is turn number 4. And Alba and Navarro also close as well, so we've got this 3rd and 4th battle, and then this 5th and 6th battle as well. 2 pairings here within this top 10, and these two though currently quite a large gap to David Junt in front of them though.
Well, it's closing, all the battles around the circuit are closing. 10 laps in, so a 5th of the way in, can you believe, in round 4 of the latest round, or the latest series for the Race Department's Grand Prix Championship here out of Brasilia. And as Tero Dolberg again is trying to get as close as he can to Dan O'Neill, and I think Dan might slowly be feeling the pressure. He's just pushing the car and holding the car quite nicely, although his racing line, especially through the last few corners, quite erratic. But that's actually one of the interesting things about this circuit, is it is a little bit wider than you might expect, so you can use different lines with different amounts of grip to give you a little bit more corner speed or a little bit less corner speed, which can play into your advantage. But Dan quite squarely pushing the car in, so going quite deep into the corner, sort of pointing it quite quickly and then running quite quickly as well, whereas Tero's doing it a little bit more flowing. So as he goes through turn number 1 now, he's going to be just a little bit closer. Dan O'Neill runs over the curb again. You don't want to be doing that too much. Tero is in the tow. Is he going to look right? He does. He ducks out at the last possible moment on driver's right hand side, the inside line for turn number 2. Will make the position and get it stopped to the apex quite nicely, but now this is where Dan can really redeem himself, because he's shown us early on in the race he can slingshot his way through up into turn number 4, the very long hairpin right-hander. Tero's trying to place the car, but Dan braking a little bit earlier for now, scrubbing up a bit too much speed.
Yes, probably a little bit cautious behind Tero, not wanting to immediately punt him off, which wouldn't be good for either of them in this section of the race. But Dahlberg, a convincing and very decisive move to the inside, and I was a little surprised that Dan O'Neill decided not to defend, but possibly determining that Dahlberg was the quicker of the two and perhaps following him is the more beneficial for his race. As I just saw a lock-up from Carlos Alba in 4th position, and those two turn 3 cars running very well in 3rd and 4th position, much higher than we've seen them run previously, which is very promising for that team. Of course, now with 4 drivers, in fact 5 drivers we have in this race from 4 drivers from turn 3 motorsport, so very expansive team, and currently running 3rd and 4th in the order. And Racing Pyjamas also quite an expansive team, with 3 drivers running 6th, 7th and 8th, so all line of stern pretty much. Craig passing a little bit further back, but certainly Tom Watts and Dan O'Neill quite close together.
As you say, they're starting to close in now, and Tom comes quite good, especially in the middle and late portions of the race classically. A good battle sort of going on underneath our noses as well, the one for 3rd between Antonio Navarro and Carlos Alba, both Tech 3 racing boys at the moment, doing quite well out there in 3rd and 4th respectively, as just mentioned. But of course they're not really going that quickly. Antonio not got the pace compared to Carlos, and the more he slows himself up, the more he's going to slow them back into the rest of the oncoming pack. To put it into context, Navarro 44.4 on the last one, 44.8 for the Carlos Alba, and Tero Dahlberg of 43.4, so going about a second quicker at least than Antonio.
Yes, and it just shows what that clear air can do. Now he's got past Dan O'Neill, Dahlberg really on a charge and catching those turn 3 cars very, very quickly, and Alba and Navarro possibly slowing each other up, especially considering that Alba was the quicker qualifier. I've just noticed at the bottom of the screen, Christian Zorn now out of the race. Andrew Harper's gone a lap down as well, so some troubles for the Racing Pyjamas Jaguar car. And Christian Zorner didn't see that. Possibly Dan can get a replay for us and see what happened, and hopefully Davey can as well, but Zorner now out of the race.
Unfortunately, it's a shame for him. A bit of a struggle in this race, as it's been for 1 or 2 other instances throughout the course of the season. However, his luck will change at some point. Meanwhile, the battle for 3rd getting even closer, as we are potentially heading towards pit stop territory now.
Yes, and just as you say that, Carlos Alba turns on his pit stop request button, and his little wrench has appeared at the bottom left of the timing screen, and that means that he is ready to come into the pit lane. So obviously on a 2-stop, maybe even a 3-stop strategy here tonight, and only lap 13, so that would suggest possibly a 3-stop, no 2-stop, maybe 2-stop, 3-stop between the two, or maybe he just wants to get some clean air, because Dahlberg is now right behind the two of them.
Well, this is what they're saying, is Alba is sort of being held up by Navarro. Navarro is being held up by Alba. Tero Dahlberg being added into the mixing bowl is not really going to help the situation at all, and this is where Tero is going to struggle. As they make their way now, as Antonio Navarro clips that massive curve which washes off a load of speed. So as they now head up towards the next few corners, Tero Dahlberg is going to have to desperately try and make a move. He's really going to get impatient, stuck behind these two. On the power they go though. And will Carlos come into the pit lane? As David Yunt's gone for a spin. David Yunt has gone for a spin.
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4 times. He's stuck on the grass. Just trying to apply a load and load of power. And he's going to rejoin just in front of this battle for third and fourth, which is now second, third and fourth. David Yunt now down into fifth place. Jude's coming to the pit lane as well. I can't see the replay, unfortunately, so I will have to try and find out in a moment what happened there as Carlos, in fact, does peel into the pit lane.
Yes. I'm surprised there's been no team orders between both Alba and Navarro there in order to let Alba through. I'm very surprised that Alba waited that long in order. Sorry, Navarro waited. In fact, he didn't wait. He didn't move out the way at all. I was going to say he waited that long until he let Alba through, but in fact Alba has come into the pits on his own accord, and as has David Yunt. So previously in second position, now down the order, and Alba, relatively good pit stop, returns in 10th position. David Yunt right behind him on circuit, so those two will remain in their battle. But the key thing for Alba is whether he is on some clean air, and it does look like he's going to return just ahead of Tobias Marquardt there in the order, and he's got a number of seconds, probably about 10 seconds of empty tarmac in front of him, so he can push these tyres now.
We'll wait and see. Certainly we'll wait and see to really understand how the strategies are going to play out, but I think that was And
another one for David Yunt there, trying to find where he is, and he's off the circuit. Question is, did he hit the barrier? So Yunt, we hear from our great cameraman David van der Veen, apparently went for a move on Alba while he was on cold tyres and didn't quite work out, and went for a spin trying to avoid, as we have a battle between Jeremy Mook and Tom Lombards for 13th position. Mark Breslin also in this battle. Jeremy under pressure from Lombards, who is also under pressure from Mark Breslin, so the three of them close together on circuit. Lombards very sideways through the mid-corner and very sideways on the exit as well, so two snaps of oversteer for the Belgian as they go through this last sector of the lap, and David Yunt catching them ever quickly after his spin on the previous lap, but that has really lost David Yunt a lot of time. He's now, what, 10 seconds behind Carlos Alba.
Well, it's really, that's going to be the nail, the final nail in the Coffrid Quiz race. It's really just having to make up for lost time, and slowing down a lot will not help him somewhat. And this battle, though, is going to be enjoyed. Tom Lambert's sort of not trying to shut the door, but David Yunt getting a little bit closer than you think he'd want to do. Relatively easily makes the move through turn number 1. Can now see the battling Breslin and Mook up ahead of him, so he doesn't want to get too much involved in this. It'll sort of make his race that little bit longer, which at this point you really just want to go, you know what, I just want this done and want to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't suggest that is the best call at the moment, especially considering he's got drivers all around him, and Mook did get passed by Breslin, but Breslin back under attack now from Mook, who goes very sideways on the inside of the corner. Mook goes all the way around the outside. David Yunt gets involved as well, and that's slowed him up a lot. And Lombard's now right behind as well. I'm just going to check further up the field, because I believe, yes, Terrell Darberg is scheduled to make a pit stop on this lap. So after 15 laps, it looks as though Terrell Darberg has decided he needs to get past Antonio Navarro and pits now for fresh tyres. Will that be a good port of call? Very rushed pit entry there for Dahlberg as he tries to get the car stopped for the pit lane limiter. Will he come out in front of Alba? In fact, Alba's had a spin because he was behind Jean-Pierre Paire. He's now a lot further back than that. So possibly contact with Jean-Pierre Paire. He was very close going into turn number 2, so perhaps in that section that we've seen so much drama, perhaps that is the area that he was caught out.
Unfortunately, I didn't see what happened there, but Terrell Dahlberg has been given a drive-through penalty, and that's been assigned by the live steward, I believe, so that could be for speeding in the pit lane.
Yes, looking at the way he rushed into the pit lane, I wouldn't be surprised considering he'd locked all 4 tyres trying to get it stopped. Very difficult pit lane.
But David Yunt did the same thing as well.
Oh, David Yunt's also got a drive-through.
That could be why. Maybe they both just missed where the entry line is, and as a result, oversped, which then caused the issue.
Yes, the only other option I can think is maybe he was given it due to the fact he made that rash move on Carlos Alba early in the race. So,
but then what would Tero's penalty assigned for? Because he hasn't made a similar infraction. To be fair.
Yes, perhaps Tero's is for the speed in the pit lane and Yunt's is for the contact he made with Alba. However, having said that, Alba didn't come off negatively. It was only Yunt who did, so perhaps for an unsafe rejoin when he spun off, perhaps, or maybe it is the pit lane speeding, because he did come out the pit lane very close to Alba, as Antonio Navarro now pits. So this is going to be interesting between Navarro and Dahlberg, very close when they came into the pit lane. Navarro stops right near the end of pit lane here, and Dahlberg coming through the final corner now, and yet to make the pit stops are Ferdinand Lechner, Dan O'Neill, Tom Watts, Craig Patterson, so the Racing Pyjamas ring second, third and fourth, Matt Legale and Matt Cook, and Dahlberg does come out ahead of Antonio Navarro.
He's long gone ahead of Dahlberg. Oh, sorry, yes. Dahlberg is long gone ahead of Alba.
Yes, very true. In fact, what, 5 seconds perhaps between the two of them, so a very successful undercut accomplished for Terrell Dahlberg to move up into 7th position, and that will be very beneficial for his race, which will now put him, I believe, in net 2nd position after everyone else makes their pit stops. Yes, of course, Dahlberg also has his drive-through to contend with, so Antonio Navarro will have the upper hand after that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out between the two of them. Navarro may get up into net 2nd position once again, once Dahlberg makes his drive-through penalty and goes through the pit lane. Hopefully this time at the correct speed. However, he is closing very quickly on Matt Cook, who is yet to make his pit stop. So it looks like the debate about 2 or 3 stop is still very much a issue amongst the drivers here.
So Dan Long comes in.
Dan O'Neill,
rather.
Yes. Yes, the first of the Racing Pyjamas cars through pit.
Matt Legale now coming in as well.
I think this will mean these drivers on a 2-stop, given this is a third of the way through the race.
Potentially. So as Dan O'Neill leaves, also Matt Cook has come in behind Matt Legale, Jean-Pierre Pere coming in from 12th.
Yeah, so very busy pit lane at the moment. Legale and Cook both leave simultaneously, and Jean-Pierre Pere just down on off the jacks, and he leaves his pit lane as well. We're yet to see Terrell Dahlberg make his drive-through penalty, so I think it's 3 laps you're given, so I should think he'd have to do it on this lap. So this may be his last chance to do so, and that will give the 2nd position back to Navarro once the 3 drivers ahead are yet to make a pit stop. Of course, Lechner yet to make his pit stop, as is Tom Watson, Craig Patterson, and Dahlberg, of course, has his drive-through.
So, in the meantime, with Tero due to come into the pit lane, I imagine the next lap because of his drive-through penalty, I believe you can't take more than 3 laps before you take it, so we should be in on this one. As Tom Watts now comes into the pit lane,
so
and Ferdinand Lechner also due to come in on his lap at the moment.
Yes, so it looks like most of the drivers here coming in now are on the 2-stop strategy. It's looking for Terrell Dahlberg, and he now comes into the pit lane once again, locking up to the drive-through penalty.
Craig Patterson as well, also in for his pit stop. So Tom Watts now just about 2nd or so ahead of Tero, so that's ultimately where they will be joining, sort of 7th, 8th 8-ish position at the moment. David Yunt, I think, is in and around. There we go. In fact, David now up into 6th place. Tobias Marquardt got ahead of Tom Watts, but David didn't. Who's going to now got the run one way, then the other. Going to try and go around the outside, although look, David goes very wide, almost into the barrier. In fact, he is into the barrier.
Very
just
quickly
slightly
into
too
the barrier
confident as he gets a skate on now. And still all over the grass, which really shows you can just be a little bit more patient, because what did we say during qualifying? That it's the barriers are so close, but it's going so quickly. He's lost at least 10 seconds having to bobble around the security roads, just trying to get back on.
Yes, look at it. There is a little bit of tarmac there that you can run across, but very rash move. And we saw that at the when he came out the pit lane as well, trying to pass Carlos Alba and just causing damage to his own car and really not benefiting his own race in any way. So 9th position now for David Johnson. Really should be up with Antonio Navarro, in fact even further up than Antonio Navarro, as Lechner is now into the pit lane, back out again with 1 minute in hand over the rest of the field. Of course, that will correct itself. That will correct itself once Navarro comes over the timing line. And the only driver now yet to make his pit stop within that top 10, I believe, is Tobias Marquardt, who's very quickly being caught by Tom Watts and Terrell Dahlberg, who's on the attack again. This time a different Racers Pyjamas car, and still Marquardt continues on. So perhaps going for the risky one stop here tonight.
It's certainly going to be interesting to see if they can maintain that strategy. So, as they continue on their way at the moment, Perro dropped back just slightly, but Tom Watts in 6th, trying to go for 5th with Tobias Marquardt. Now on driver's left hand side, running a lot deeper, which means Terry Dahlberg's going to take the position as well.
Yes, and I think Tobias Marquardt, his tyres are pretty much gone now, given how easily those two are able to overtake him, and just look how much sooner he has to brake into turn number 4 as well. He can't turn as much as the two in front of him. In fact, gets a little bit caught on the curb there on the exit as well. His last lap then was a 1:45. Alba 1:43. Watts just went into the pit lane, so he was on a 2:09, and a 1:55 for Dahlberg as well due to his pit stop. But before that, they were running 1:43. So Marquardt, I should think, will be pitting very soon, because those tyres are very, very worn.
Well, that's costing him more time than it is worth to just come into the pit lane. Ideally, if he wants to go another 5 laps, he can do, but it depends on whether he feels that the 15 seconds or so at least he's losing out on track over the next 5 laps is worth enough to justify saving that extra few Wozniak has actually got in touch with me to say his game minimised, which is thanks to malware bytes, and he went into Narnia, apparently. He forgot where he was, and then when he rejoined, unfortunately, he was black flagged, so that would be the issue as to why he is now disqualified / out of this race.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate there, especially during a league race, and especially on that first couple of laps. I didn't think he had made contact, so the reason he was off the circuit was very suspicious, and thank you for the explanation there for how he ended up black flagged. So unfortunate for Wozniak. Hopefully he can rejoin us for the finale at Owen Park for the Racers Pyjamas team.
And we're currently looking, also enjoying the battle for 4th and 3rd place at the moment, with Dan O'Neill, the Racing in Pyjamas HP liveried car, now in 3rd place, and Carlos Alba, who's really feistily looking for the inside line, tried a lunge which really wasn't going to amount to anything, but was a very good signal of intent as he abuses the curb there, going through the final portions of this lap on lap 21 out of 51. We're nearing the half distance after 37 minutes in this race.
Yes, and Alba very aggressively braked very deep into the infield hairpin there, trying to get very close to the grass there. In fact, I think he just clipped the grass going into the final corner. I thought he was going to spin immediately. Luckily for him, he did not. However, very quick to get back on circuit again and break in a straight line, and he's now only got 8 attempts in front of him until he can really challenge for that third position. And Terrell Dahlberg also challenging a Racing Pyjamas car as well, so both Racing Pyjamas cars under pressure here for 3rd and 5th positions respectively.
Dropped back slightly though on these last few laps. However, with just a little bit more patience, can catch back up again as Dan O'Neill went incredibly deep into turn number 3. But it really did emphasise, turn number 4, which did emphasise my sort of emphasis on his sort of the lines he's using around this Brasilia circuit, because it is quite different. You can use different lines, and I think for him that particular line is working for him in ways that others just might not.
Yes, and while that was going on, Dahlberg with a spin again. So he had one earlier in the race while he was running 3rd. He's now had Ron Bradley, who's running 6th, and in a very good position to challenge Tom Watts. He's now down into 8th position behind Tobias Marquardt, who is still yet to make his pit stop, and David Yunt.
As we've got Andrew Harper slowing up just to let some of the lap traffic through, which is very good of him. But just to recap the order then, as we head towards the half distance, and it is Ferdinand Lechner who leads once again in round 4 of the Race Department's Grand Prix Championship with 40.5 seconds ahead of Antonio Navarro. I don't know why I'm emphasising it, because it shouldn't become a shock to us by now, is it? So Antonio Navarro in 2nd place ahead of Dan O'Neill and Carlos Alba, which is going down as a great battle so far, with Tom Watts, Tobias Marquardt, David Yunt, Terrell Dahlberg and Craig Patterson, with Mark Breslin rounding out the top 10, Matt Legale, Matt Cook, Jean-Pierre Père, Steve Legale, Thomas Pazzi, Oliver Louis, Papa Andrew in 17th, Jeremy Mook in 18th, Ron Bertz 19th, Joseph Brighton 20th, with Andrew Harper in 21st position.
Yes, and I've just been having a quick look at Lechner's lap time since he made that pit stop. A 1:41.2 and then a 1:41.1, so 2 lap times quicker than he was running earlier in the race. In fact, he ran 3 1-minute 41.3 lap times in the early portion of the race, and he's just run another 1:41.1. So 3 lap times within a 1/10 of a second twice on new tyres, an extraordinary feat. And in fact, he's 8 tenths quicker than David Yunt's fastest lap, who I believe is the 2nd fastest driver, as in per fastest lap. But at the moment, Lechner, no one challenging him, and a perfect line through every single corner. He's on rails.
But at the moment, he's almost 2 seconds quicker than anyone else on circuit, so no wonder he's going so fantastically well. Meanwhile, the battle for the 6th is one we should look at the moment, because Tobias has gone slightly deep. David Yunt still on the hunt at the moment, with Terrell Dahlberg in 8th place so far, side by side for Yunt, who almost makes contact with Marquardt. Bit of an untidy race for David, uncharacteristic for him. However, they go through the final turn here at Brasilia, makes the position up into 6th place. Tobias just sits back, waiting, biding his time in the toe, going to look for a move potentially into turn number 1. Holds off, slightly better idea, just lifts and coasts into turn number 1. David might take some better exit speed, although doesn't. Terry Dahlberg now going to try and capitalise.
Yes, and you can tell Marquardt on those worn tyres, because he just could not carry the corner speed. Dahlberg had to completely back out of the throttle through turn number 1. Despite that, he did manage to make the move into the next corner, so Marquardt losing a lot of time at this moment, and really needs to make it to that pit stop phase and wants those new fresh tyres on, and those will feel so nice after having ridden round for the last couple of laps on worn tyres, and really has suffered, and he's lost quite a lot of time to the drives he was passing down with Dan O'Neill at one point. He's now, what, 20 seconds behind, so just showed how much new tyres versus old tyres can be beneficial and also not beneficial in the case of Tobias Marquardt.
Certainly, and guessing just about now that half at this point. And so far this race, living up to expectations from Ferdinand and the Mighty Four in general, another great reason, but the Tech 3 racing cars performing very well, very high up in the grids, especially compared to a few other races over the last few meetings where they have been there or thereabouts, but not quite at the top end of the grid, whereas now they're fighting along with the rest of the big boys.
Yes, Navarro, Alba, both names that we weren't expecting to see at the top in this race. Navarro's in 20th in the championship, and Carlos Alba is in 24th in the championship. So these results for turn 3 very, very promising for that team, who have really struggled so far this season even to get into the top 10. So results like this will really do their championship so much good, and at this point in the season perhaps too late, but really showing what they can do in these Formula 3 cars at the moment. And Alba not far away from Dan O'Neill either.
No, certainly not, and I think that's the good thing about this circuit, as we said in qualifying, is we're still enjoying during this race, is the fact that it's promoting some great racing, even though normally we will see a slight lull in the action in the midpoint of the race. We've still got 2 or 3 battles which are happening, especially after the first round of pit stops, which can be uncharacteristic, as Manos, as I shall try to not butcher his name, has unfortunately returned to the garage, so another technical issue for him, which is a shame to see. And Tero Dolberg in 7th place at the moment, desperately wants 6 with David Yunt just ahead, looking slightly scrappy.
Yes, I should think from that damage earlier, having hit the wall, his car is not the best shape at all, but still continuing on, which is very resilient of him, but maybe to a negative effect. But Dahlberg has closed in after dispatching of Tobias Marquardt, and is now right behind David Yunt as they go into turn number 1. And if he can get this speed through turn number 1, I won't be surprised if he can make a move. He has to back out the throttle though in the dirty air, and that's ruined his run down towards turn number 2. He will gain a little bit in the slipstream once they get up to speed, but unfortunately the momentum he lost coming out of turn number 1 has caused him to not be able to make that move up to 6th position at this moment in time.
So just cycling through, and Carlos Alba at the moment seems to have got his pit stop request light back on, which could mean he's coming back in, or he could have just accidentally hit it and not noticed it. I'm betting the first or the latter rather than the former. However, it would be far too early for a second stop, because you got half the race left to go. Unless all they're going to do is put fuel into the car and go to the end.
Well, if I remember rightly, Alba did pit on lap number 13, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does pit now as well, given that he pitted for 30. He had the 13 lap stint at the start and then another 13 lap stint. So it wouldn't be a shock if he was to come into the pit lane. In fact, yes, he is. So it looks like a 3-stop strategy here for Alba this evening. Gets down to 37 miles per hour and into the pit lane. I believe his pit stop box is right at the end of the lane, so got a long way to go on the pit limiter before he stops in his box, and that will be a few positions lost here, as once more Yunt and Dahlberg battling, and Tobias Marquardt has come into pit lane now, I believe. Has he? Yes, I believe he has, yes. Yes, he's just come out of the pit lane, so as we suspected, a 1-stop there for Marquardt. 1-stop, a 2-stop and a 3-stop in this race, which is very entertaining to see.
Well, they must have done some calculations and realised it's going to be more beneficial for them.
Yes, quite possibly. However, looking at Marquardt's position at the moment, just about to go a lap down behind Lechner, perhaps that isn't quite the case, considering Alba has also done 2 stops, and granted he is only 15 seconds ahead, but given that Marquardt did go with 1 stop less, that is quite a lot of time to lose.
And once again, Taro Dolberg trying to line up David Yunt for the position. However, Craig Patterson and Matt Legale slowly coming into the fore of this battle as well. They are starting to close in. They're not that close, evidently. However, they are slowly bringing it closer and closer.
Yes, and of course, Legale had that incident at the start of the race, so he was on the back foot from the very beginning, and now trying a recovery drive up through the order. He was in about 17th position all out lap 5, so now up to 8th position, with Craig Patterson just ahead of him there. And Dahlberg, though, once again looking for that move on David Yunt down the start-finish straight, long downhill run into turn 1. Braking just as they turn in, down 2 gears there, down to 110 miles per hour now in the dirty air for Terrell Dahlberg. And now he's going to try getting the slipstream of David Yunt, but once more, as with the last couple of laps, he's not able to get close enough to the mighty fourth driver. And for this moment, and probably for this lap, he's going to have great difficulty overtaking David Yunt.
As you say, it's just being patient and just waiting for the moment that will come. It will come, we know it will come. There's about 23 laps in this race left to go. So with one more stop. The other one is David Yunt effectively, he's lost at least a minute in his race strategy, so you'd think he'd be much higher up. So I think Tero's going to be quite pleased to see him and David Yunt's going to be quite angry to see him. So ultimately something's going to give.
Yes, and I think Dahlberg will be pleased to see that he can run with Yunt. Of course, annoyed with himself for having that drive-through penalty, which was given to him just after that pit stop. But at the moment, on the piling on the pressure to David Yunt, and has been for a number of laps. And Dahlberg did quit quite early, lap 13, I believe, so possibly trying a longer stint here in order to get further through the race. Currently no sign of coming to the pit stop yet, but you can't think that this run at the moment with Yunt in front of him will be doing any good for his tyres either, so perhaps a little unbeneficial, is that a word? Unbeneficial?
It isn't
for
beneficial.
him to say. Pardon?
It isn't beneficial.
Yes, that's correct. It isn't beneficial for him to stay behind at the moment.
But I think ultimately, if he's not quick enough to get past, he's not quick enough to sit at effectively on the diffuser every single lap. So it's just a case of waiting to see what happens. And at this point in the race, it's as easy to get yourself into a rhythm when you've got a few people ahead of you, when you don't have to think so much about yourself and you're in the moment, as opposed to just having to plod around all on your own. Because that's I always found when you're sort of driving just with yourself, no one to lap, no one ahead of you, you're just pounding around, but it's boring basically. It's just, you have to think and you have to go, well, you know, there's no one around, this is just taking bloody forever, whereas this is much better for David. As David says, and he goes round, he spins, he hits the curb ever so slightly wrong, and what was I saying about thinking? He does stop on the racing line this time where he was, so everyone can pass before getting underway. But what was I saying about getting into a rhythm? I do apologise because that was courtesy of the commentator, but other than that, you have to think about that, and well, that's what happens. You can get yourself into a rhythm very easily, but when you have to, you know, think about moving out for someone else or think about defending too much, that's what can really unsettle you.
Yes, and that is exactly what happened there. It seemed he's caught the curb on the outside, and that is what sent him round. And now David Yunt down to 8th position, and that is handed the position to Daryl Dahlberg, who admittedly was looking like he was on par with David Yunt in terms of pace. Now, no problem to get through as he goes slightly right in turn 1, and thought there was a big slide, but just a bit of lag on my end. Going through the motions now for Terrell Dahlberg, trying to get back up into the race, and now up into 5th position from his starting position of 4th, as Patterson and Legale now in a battle for 6th position. Patterson very eagerly defending to the inside, immediately moves to the inside after having gone through turn number 2, and Legale just goes past him on the straight. Patterson, of course, with the longer way round. And oh, Legale very sideways out the corner, and that'll give Patterson the chance to come back at him. but I shouldn't suspect Legale made this easy. Patterson eager to get through on the inside, nudging Legale along, and thankfully these 1 or 3 cars quite sturdy in their front and rear wings, so no damage done to either car. But Patterson will be very annoyed to lose that position to Legale, and Legale now up to 6th position on his charge back up the order.
And it's incredible. What a save then for the pair of them. Just got a slight slide on. However, Patterson going to have a look at the inside to try and return the favour on Matt, who goes slightly wider on his approach into the corner. And Craig probably didn't see that coming, but this is the sort of battle that these guys are really looking for and really trying to crave, because this is some fantastic stuff going on at the moment. With Joseph Wright about to be lapped by the pair of them as Joseph actually peels into the pit lane. So no, he doesn't. So he was just staying out of the way. So what I was saying was in fact true. So he slightly peels out of the way, which would have lost Matt a slight amount of time. Craig quicker through turn number 1, starting to close in. Matt is trying to break that toe desperately, but is it working? On the timing screens it says yes. Psychologically, I don't think so.
And Patterson now showing the pit stop icon now, so that implies that he is going to make a pit stop on this lap. None of the other drivers within that top 7 will be doing, so it looks like Patterson has decided now is the time to put on some fresh tyres and attempt the undercut here, perhaps thinking that he can benefit from the fresher tyres for a few laps while Legale goes round on those slower, older tyres, and perhaps get back up and get the track position back. Of course, the thing that won't benefit him is that he will be on the back foot in terms of tyre wear come the end of the race, because I don't believe he'll be able to go 20 laps on one set of tyres unless he does a Tobias Marquardt and goes around for 25 laps, an incredibly slow pace comparative to everyone else. So it's going to be interesting to see if Patterson can get through if he makes this pit stop now. In fact, he's decided not to. Looks like he's turned the pit request off, so Patterson decided to stay out for a few more laps.
Sometimes so, if you leave it on for long enough, it doesn't automatically, it can sometimes cancel itself on screen, but it does in fact continue onto this lap. So, as you say, not coming in on this one. It's come back on now though, so it could be a case of it thought it was going to come in last lap, then cancelled it, and then coming in this lap and not cancelling it so far. Interestingly though, as they continue to make their way around the circuit, the gap now, the lead, 1 minute and 17 seconds. Goodness gracious me, that is quick. To put it into context, the last lap for Ferdinand Leclerc, 42.5. The last lap for Antonio Navarro, 44.7. Over 2.2 seconds quicker than the next fastest person on circuit. Ferdinand really is incredibly fast, isn't he? For the meantime though, with just under an hour of this race completed, 56 minutes and 5 seconds to be exact, 33 laps out of 51, Ferdinand Leclerc continues to lead in the 4th race of the 6th season of the Race Department Grand Prix Championship here at Automobilista. As we continue on with the race. And we are enjoying another great battle. Craig Patterson is coming into the pits on this lap, so on with the brakes. Into the pit lane now for Craig. The Racing in Pyjamas car will come to a stop basically in the middle of the pit lane, outside of the garage where Christian Zorner's car stored, unfortunately due to the unfortunate issue earlier on. Need some more great battling along the circuit, and Craig on his exit. Meanwhile, great battle for 9th and 10th so far, and Mark Breslin in 10th place, running quite wide out of turn number 1, underneath the Pirelli bridge and towards turn number 2, with Tobias Marquardt in 9th place so far, with the Banzai TCC car in number 16. Tries hard on tonight's position at the moment. It was a little bit smoother than Mark on that occasion through turn number 2 and 3, but the faster elements of this circuit really staying into the toe. Mark started to close back in again, using a slightly wider line in to try and carry as much speed and momentum through the corner. Through the next section of left-handers, there's loads of bumps here, especially one at the apex where they just jump down by the apex. It's quite a difficult one to hold on to. Mark in 10th place then with car number 44, biding the time, waiting to see what will happen with the car in front. Just a few car lengths as Mark uses the left-hand side of the circuit to try and pull as tight a line as he can. That's really going to help, not only with momentum to try and cool the brakes down, to try and get out of that dirty air as Tobias slides slightly deeper. Again, this is what we were saying earlier about the excellent efforts here of the circuit, as there's multiple lines to go through as Tobias goes quite wide indeed. They go side by side. Right hand side, driver's right hand side for Mark Breslin, who can't quite carry enough speed through the final turn. They remain side by side. I thought he would have had a position made, but not quite. Tobias cleverly manages to maintain the position just for now as they go again almost side by side, almost contact at turn number 1. And Mark must find a way through at some point. He's going to be edging on. He's going to be frustrated. 144 miles an hour just underneath the bridge as they almost touch wheels side by side. They get as close down as possible. Mark swings it up the inside, and despite the fact that they locked wheels, he was nearly 5 or 6 miles an hour quicker underneath the bridge than Tobias. And Mark up into 9th place, but it's not done yet by a long stretch. Tobias goes to driver's left hand side the long way round, effectively to try and use that momentum, swinging in as late as he dares, put as much effort on the tyre to try and get a bit more grip, both aerodynamically and mechanically. Didn't work for him in the end, and he's backed away by about 2 or 3 car lengths, just to mean he stays in 10th place so far. Meanwhile,
and another battle.
Another battle, yes, we have a good battle for 8th and 7th place, as we can now hear you, Peter.
Yes, I'm not sure what happened there, but disconnect and connect seems to have worked perfectly, as Carlos Alba now putting David Yunt under pressure. And looking at David Yunt's hoods there, it looks like he's going to make a pit stop, and indeed he does, as does Matt Lagale and Terrell Dahlberg also making pit stops. So this looks like the opportune lap for the second pit stop, just being 2/3 of the way through this race. And into the pit lane now for a number of drivers. Daryl Dahlberg leaving the pit lane there. Hopefully no drive through this time, but clean as you like for most of the drivers there as they go through and back onto the circuit. Breslin though, a great move there to get up the inside of Marquardt, and a great little exchange as well between the two of them, weaving this way and that way, trying to fend off the slipstream. Very clever driving from Marquardt into turn number 1, but ultimately a little bit more speed from Mark Breslin allowed him to get through into the next corner.
Well, it's fantastic. This kind of racing we come here to come and watch, isn't it?
Yes, just what the Formula 3s are meant to do, this close, tight-knit racing in relatively easy cars to drive. They're not Formula 1 levels of power, but you still do have to have that skill, and they still do offer the same acceleration that you get from a higher powered Formula car. And really a great benchmark for all drivers in this series as Breslin and Marquardt continue around. Marquardt, from what we've seen, very sideways. Oh, just holds on to it. He had about 10 slides there through that corner, and another driver off behind him. It was that Jean-Pierre Perez straight on at the corner. That infield left-hander straight into the barrier. Unfortunate for him, Steve Lagale goes through. And Jean-Pierre Perez, for the moment, with a little bit of damage, I suspect.
Oh, and contact there between Marquardt and David Yunt. Just misjudging the braking.
Yes, Yunt coming off the worst of that, it seems. Was Marquardt trying to make the move on Junt, or was it the other way around?
Well, I think it was just Marquardt who just misjudged his braking completely.
Yeah.
Because
of
poor
course,
old David is having an awful race today.
yes, of course, Marquardt was behind Mark Breslin, so it looked like he's already lost some time from that earlier excursion to the grass, and then perhaps trying to make up time, or Junt trying to capitalise on his worn tyres there, or rather slightly flat-spotted tyres here.
Meanwhile, as we get closer to the end of this race, a few narratives are closing in, such as the fact that Ferdinand Lechner is due to come in at the end of this lap, lap 37, which means he will go to the end of the race. Can you believe we've just got one more stint in this race left to go?
Yes. Can you believe that he's only a few seconds behind second and third?
Wow, I was going to say, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's 1 minute and 20 seconds at least.
Oh, and Marquardt and Junt side by side again. More contact between the two of them.
I'll say that David is not going to be happy in that car, is he?
He's trying to move at every single corner, it looks.
I think it's just going to ended up playing out like wacky races. It's going to have spikes in the sides of the wheels, you know. Take that, you person. Every time they go past, you know, just get Dick Dastardly in the muck, just lapping as they go past every single time. This is entertaining stuff for us, but for these guys, I can't imagine David's going to be having too many positive comments underneath that helmet.
Yes. It's like a cross between Mario Kart and Wacky Races. It almost needs a red shell to try and take out Marquardt at the moment, but Marquardt holding his ground at the moment in that 10th position, and Junt unable to make the move, and Junt being squeezed out to the wall. Schumacher and Barrichello vibes coming back to me as they go through turn 1, and Junt does finally make the move, but Marquardt is going to have the drive down the straight and the slipstream.
Although David knows well how to defend this particular position, he swings one way than the other, does Tobias, looking for every single inch that's possible. David Junt, though, been doing fantastically throughout the course of the season. He's very good at defending and attacking. Tobias looking a little bit rough and ready at the best of times in this race. Hopefully can make a good move and keep it sticking in this last part of the race.
He nearly had a good run, but unfortunately the dirty air took over when he got on the power, and that lost him a lot of time. About half a second he lost just from a little bit of dirty air there in the mid-corner, and he's now 7/10 behind Junt, whereas I think he would have had a fairly good stab through to the next section of corners had it not been from that little excursion wide. So Junt safely up to 10th position, but a drop of 8 positions overall in this race.
They continue on, and 10th place is David Junt, definitely not where he wants to be at any point in this race. Trying to keep an eye out on circuits, where else are we enjoying some really close battles, because there's Steve Legale, who's in 13th place, who's got Oliver Louis and Jean-Pierre Paire for the Kinker Racing cars behind, which are closing in to that position at a relative rate of knots as Louis goes deep, meaning that Pierre almost going through. However, at this very last point in the race, everyone just spread out ever so slightly, but with the last round of pit stops due for a few people in the next few laps as well, with just 15 laps of this race left to go, that's when everything will become alive once again.
Yes, Carlos Alba, one of those drivers who will be making a third pit stop, I assume. Very close to it indeed as well. He's trying to make the 3-stop strategy work there, and those two Kinker Racing cars have been together for pretty much the entirety of this season. In fact, they're level on points coming into here. They were together on the same row of the grid, and now they're running line astern as well, within a second of each other on the circuit as well. So it seems they've been training and getting quicker off each other, and it seems that none of them have been able to get quicker than the other. And at the moment, Louis, the quicker of the two, but only by a couple of tenths from Pierre Paire, who at the moment just seems to be sitting there behind his teammate, ready to pounce if at all he gets the opportunity, because I'm sure within the team, while they are teammates, there will be bragging rights for whoever gets the highest position at the end of this championship.
Thursday now. Perro now back into 4th position as Carlos Albert is in the pits at the moment. Just leaving his pit box now in 7th place. Matt Legale is going to go past for 8th. Craig Patterson might just, in fact, yes, does go through. And Carlos has been given a drive-through penalty. That's got to be for speeding coming up to the entry line.
Yeah, disaster there for him. Just quickly though, for a battle for 5th position, Tom Watts up the inside of Mark Breslin into turn number 2, makes it stick. Breslin though only a few tenths behind. In fact, he's going to draw alongside into the next corners, and Breslin has the inside line. Can he hold it there, or will he get a snap of oversteer as we've seen for a few drivers in this race? And in fact, yes, a very good line there for the 5th position driver Tom Watts in order to get through and keep that 5th position all the way around the outside, and now up into 5th position for Tom Watts. Meanwhile, oh sorry, I thought there was a battle, but it's Antonio Navarro passing a lapper.
It's quite alright. I'm just following on from the battle for 6th and 5th at the moment, as you say, with Tom Watts defending quite harsh, but then again all of a sudden Mark Breslin's dropped back a whole load of time.
Yes, perhaps the tyres for Mark Breslin not as good as they used to. Perhaps coming towards the end of his stint, but a good leap of positions for Breslin. In fact, no, he's gone down 1 position. I was about to say he's come through the back, but in fact he's not. One person that has come through the back is Matt Legale, only down 1 position from his starting position, despite having an excursion to the grass multiple times within the first couple of laps. Meanwhile, Craig Patterson and Carlos Alba battle for 9th position. Just when we think there's no battles on circuit, we get one between 2 drivers here. Craig Patterson just ahead of Carlos Alba, who has to make his drive through, but nevertheless wants to make this pass stick, and into turn number 2. He's going to have the inside line. Going to run side by side with Patterson. Patterson's going to have the outside line, but it will be the shorter line to turn number 3. Question is, can Alba stay there, or can Patterson get the upper hand through the next corner? We've seen this line work on the outside for a number of other drivers, but this time Alba a very successful overtake there to get through to 9th position. Of course, he will have to make his drive through though, which is very unfortunate for him given his position in this race.
And now, with not that long left to go, as you say, everything is changing. And with Terradalbo back up into 4th place, somewhere we didn't expect to see him after the middle portion of the race. Ferdinand Lechner having pretty much lapped everyone in the race. In fact, only the top 7, or only 2nd through 7th, are on the current lap, or the lead lap as we should say. Everyone else duking it out at least a lap or 2 behind. And otherwise, the pit stop strategy is not long until they do finally come through. But 42 out of 51, we've got 9 laps left to go then here in the 4th round of the Race Pump Grand Prix Championship here at Brasilia in Brazil, just in case you didn't know, Anyway, so it's looking good. Another entertaining race. Some fantastic battling as ever. It's, of course, it's not going to be solved. David Yunt catching up to Matt Legale, and Matt Legale's got Ferdinand Lechner, who is not by no means traffic, but he got someone ahead of him, which is going to be distracting him slightly.
Legale slightly wide there, and that's
very wide. He slows up significantly.
I wouldn't be surprised if Yunt makes a move immediately, as we've seen him do so many times. In fact, he's going to look for the inside. Legale jigs to the inside in order to defend.
And
contact. Slightly too opportunistic for Yunt, a little bit too close, and when Legale slowed for the corner, slightly offline, Yunt didn't quite expect it, and therefore ran into the back of him slightly, but both of them not too harmed in that.
So
I was just having a look at the battle between Terrell Dahlberg and Dan O'Neill. O'Neill only 6 tenths ahead of Dahlberg, so Dahlberg could get on the back of the podium if he can get a good run through these last couple of laps and get that move made past Dan O'Neill.
And Carlos Alba now comes in to serve his drive-through penalty.
And he's going to drop quite a way back. 11th. Looks like he's going to come back out in 11th position because Matt Cook's still got quite a little bit of time before he makes his way round to the start finish line. So 11th position now for Carlos Alba after his starting position of 3rd. So
sorry to interrupt Peter, but Matt Legale having to defend heavy now from David Yuntz coming into turn number 4. David's been swinging left and right for at least the last 2 or 3 laps, but now he's been as close as he's ever been, desperately trying to get back up another position into 7th place. Matt Legale goes as fast to the left-hand side of the circuit as he can. That's going to be at detriment really to the next few lines. Can David swing it up the inside? Not quite, although he is as nose to tail as he can be.
And also as nose to tail as he can be is Terrell Dahlberg and Dan O'Neill. Dan O'Neill struggling on these tyres, and Dahlberg now another 3 tenths closer than he was last time around. A little bit of lap traffic in front, which will help Dan O'Neill on the straights. However, it won't be as beneficial through the corners. Hopefully, the driver in front of them can get out of the way. As Terrell Dahlberg runs across the curb there, and that's lost him a few tenths of a second, and especially with the draft that O'Neill is able to get as a lapper goes into the corner. And O'Neill obviously not expecting it. He's off the circuit. He's just avoided the barrier. He will not be happy with that. As Yunt once again looking for the inside of Legale into turn number 1. He's driven an excellent battle here in these last couple of laps.
Closing up exponentially, nearly can make a move. And Terrell Dahlberg in fact has made it up into 3rd place. Dan O'Neill some way back, so I'm assuming Dan's had some kind of a spin. But
so he got caught up in the lap traffic there. The driver in front of him not expecting him to come up behind them so quickly. I'm just trying to see who that was. Possibly Jeremy Mook there. Not expecting the lap traffic to come up behind him so quickly, and looked as though Dan O'Neill had to come out with throttle mid-corner. They got a big twitch on, and that sent him into the grass on the outside and almost into the barrier. But Legale's still in front of Yunt.
Closing in again though, between Yunt and Matt Legale. I'm sorry we keep mentioning this, however, this is really exciting stuff because this is going to go one way or the other. There's not a long way in this race left to go, and this could change at the drop of a pin. As Matt Legale swings to the right hand side again and to the left hand side. You can't do that too much, you've got to commit one way, you can't go one way and then the other. So through turn number 1 now they go. David again coasting through, that's all he needs to do. Try and make a move up the inside in this next particular corner. However, Matt with a little bit of a lock-up, showing the signs of pressure starting to emerge.
Yes, and you can see he's going very defensive on the way out of corners, obviously. Feels threatened by the early effects of the slipstream. As Yunt looks for the inside, you can see that Legale is slightly vulnerable through that long right-hander as they go into the infield section of the circuit and wants to pounce on it, unable to do so at this moment in time. However, perhaps in the next couple of laps he can make a move. He's been very close for the last 3 or 4, unable to make one so far, but obviously a few laps left to go, maybe a move in the final few laps.
So getting close once again in these final laps of the race, but lap 45 out of 51 now, almost on lap 46 out of 51. Where has the time gone? But Ferdinand Lechner, 1 minute and 24 seconds, 1 minute 25 seconds nearly, is the gap between himself and second place. What a race this has been for him again. By this point, we've got to say he's you know, he has to be the champion-elect because he is doing such a fantastic job. We go to Alton Park in just a few weeks' time, which is another big test for the drivers. Totally different to around here. Alton, it's not as fast as around here. It's very tight. It's struggled to overtake at the best of times, and it's really going to challenge the drivers. But if Ferdinand can show us more of this performance, then surely he is going to be our next champion in the Race Department Grand Prix Championship.
Yes, the way it's gone so far this season, and with the gap he's got at the moment, which is now stretched to 1 minute 24 as of the last timing split. A great drive here this time round, and we've got a battle between Matt Cook and the recovering Carlos Alba after his 3 pit stops and a drive through penalty. He's patrolled the pit lane 4 times, and now challenging for that 11th position. Matt Cook going defensive on the inside, unable to get the drive out the corner as a result, and therefore Alba is on the inside towards the next corner, and it's quite a simple move in the end for Alba to make, and does go through to 11th position. In fact, this is a great battle between 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th position, between Alba, Cook, Louis and Legale, all within a few seconds of each other.
It's looking really good. So far I'm really going to settle towards the end of this race. Fantastic battle as ever. And Carlos, a great move for him.
Yes, and not where he wanted to be though, given that he started in 3rd position on this grid, remember. Had a few incidents, and obviously those 4 tours of the pit stop, as I mentioned, not being helpful for his forward progress. And once again Legale going defensive from Yunt, this time remaining on the inside of the circuit. Yunt goes to the outside, Legale right on the inside, and this time Yunt is going to do the switchback move, and he does get through past Legale. Legale losing that position for the first time in this battle. Can he make the move back? That is the question. Going slightly wider into the corner, trying to stay out of the dirty air, and unable to get on the power there. That dirty air just compromising that few temps too much, and unable to get in the slipstream towards the infield section. These tighter corners that really are the best overtaking opportunities to use their long braking zones. And Yunt is slightly sideways there, and you're going to have to defend into the next left-hander. Legale on the outside now, and he's going to make Yunt defend. And then can he do the switch back? Yunt defending that inside line, stops the car on the apex and keeps his car there. Can Legale make the move into this next right-hander? Yunt's going to have to go defensive. Legale's going to go right round the outside. Slight bit of contact as Yunt drifts out wide, and Legale very sideways on the exit.
What a save.
Yeah, very, very good driving from Legale to keep the car straight and narrow. And still got the chance, remember, he's still got these 3 long straights where he can make the move on Yunt, but I fear that his tyres have just worn out that bit too much in order to make the move back up the inside.
And David, what a great move from him, showing just a little bit of consolation for him, I suppose, in this race. I mean, Matt Legale, he's got to say fair play, because they've battled as hard as they can. They've both come from poor positions to recover to where they are, which isn't great in terms of pure numbers, but for them must feel fantastic. And what a great race they've enjoyed, as Jeremy Mook just slows down at that point. But still, we've got a potential scrap between Dan O'Neill and Tom Watts in the Racing in Pyjamas cars.
Yes, it looked as though Dan O'Neill was slowed by the lap traffic, and that's allowed his teammate Tom Watts to close in these final 5 laps of the race. And Watts a lot cleaner through this midsection of the lap, and at the moment closing in every single tour of this circuit. Unable to make a move so far, but with those few laps remaining, he may have a chance just at the very end.
So with just moments in this race, literal moments in this race left to the go, not going to be long, and we will have this decided. But Dan O'Neill, I'm not sure whether his tyres are going off. He had a bit of a squirm through the second last corner, and certainly doesn't seem to be coming in quite as much apex speed through as Tom Watts is. So we'll wait and see for what actually happens.
Oh, got a dive bomb by Oliver Louis into the infield left-hander. Just avoids contact with Matt Cook. This is the battle for 12th position. Look at Steve Legale benefit from that. Goes straight through past Louis. Can he hold it round the outside? The LG racing car trying to stay out there. Unable to do so at the moment. We've got a lap car in front of them. Hopefully he can stay out of the way, as all 3 of them dive to the inside in order to get through. Very opportunistic move by Oliver Louis, and now he's gone sideways, and that is going to be the end of his challenge on Matt Cook, just like that. And Legale benefiting from that. Looks as though Louis will rejoin in 14th position, but another
if he can
spin.
actually get enough grip to get back on circuit.
Yeah. Oh, and he's gone the wrong way around the circuit now.
Well, you don't need to keep applying loads of full throttle power to get back onto the circuit.
It seems a little bit too opportunistic to get on the circuit again, and that as a result has lost him more time. In fact, he's lost 25 seconds in that. In fact, 30 seconds.
Wow.
Near enough. And Matt Legale round in the circle as well.
Oh goodness.
In 8th position. Who was just behind Davy Junt, no longer though. In fact, Breslin now is catching Tom Watts and Dan O'Neill in these final few laps of the race.
With just 2 laps left to go for the race leader.
Yes. And Mark Breslin doing everything he can, riding the curve on the exit turn 1 in order to try and get those few extra miles per hour. Got a little bit of slipstream from the lap car in front of him, which will help his course no end, but at the moment, oh, he's gone for a spin. Just too eager. And that is what can happen, and now his teammate David Junt has gone through. So these drivers having spins in the last couple of laps, just trying to push that little bit too hard. And Matt Legale can see those circles in the tarmac where the car's been spinning round and round, and he's now got Breslin in his sights with worn tyres. However, of course, Legale had a similar spin on the last lap, so he doesn't want to get too out of hand here. But as previously mentioned, Ferdinand Lechner now rounding the final few corners to start his final lap, and what has been a flawless display. Hopefully no commentator's curse, but knowing Ferdinand, I shouldn't think it would impact his driving at all. They could probably say that his car will break down and have a monumental spin into the barrier, and he probably won't because the commentator's curse doesn't seem to apply.
Touch wood. You always say touch wood.
Yeah.
You never say these things because it will then happen. I have witnessed this happen in very hilarious circumstance. But
yes.
Now onto his last lap with about 2.5 seconds left to run. You know, over a minute and a half is the gap. He's got effectively a lap. In fact, there's only one other person that's on the lead lap, and that's Antonio Navarro, who's about 10 seconds up the road.
Which
it's
is
not far.
phenomenal.
I'm sure if he spins around now, then Ferdinand would have lapped absolutely everyone on the circuit. You know, if we can interview him, I'm going to tell him he's done a poor job for not lapping Antonio. You know, it's just not on, is it?
In fact, if I was Antonio, I'd probably back off in order to let him through so I don't have to do another lap on all tyres.
Yeah, we see you're missing the point, because earlier, when I said earlier about people wanting to be the best of the best, you say, oh, I was the only person not to be lapped. You know, that does hold quite a lot.
Yeah, that is very true, and Antonio will be the only driver in this field in order to have that statement ring true. As Ferdinand now rounds the final 3 corners, all right-handers. So he's got to turn the steering wheel in one direction 3 times, and then he'll have completed the 51 laps that is required for this race win. And for the 4th time out of 4, he will have demolished the entire field. He won by over a minute at Hockenheim, he won by over a minute at Guyana, he won by over a minute at Adelaide, and now, with just one driver he hasn't lapped, Ferdinand Lechner crosses the line and wins here for the mighty 4th. The 4th win of 4, and that really does put a statement on his championship, and his challenge is now pretty much in the bag for this championship.
118.7 miles an hour, the average speed in 1 hour and 27 minutes. What a fantastic race then from Ferdinand, and what a great race from everyone else we've enjoyed, as they all start to make their way now over the line, with Antonio Navarro, the only man, as we say, not to be lapped. What a fantastic job he's done. You know, that's really good. But Tero Dolberg, what a fantastic day for him. He's been down, he's been up again. He got up, he got down, he got up again. He's there on the podium. Great result for him, with Dan O'Neill and Tom Watts running out the top 5. David Junt, Mark Breslin, Matty Galley, Craig Patterson and Tobias Marquardt in the top 10. Carlos Alba, disappointing race after fantastic 3rd place in qualifying, ahead of Matt Cook, Steve Le Galley, Oliver Louis, Jean-Pierre Père, Thomas Padley, Tom Lambert, Joseph Wright and Matt Harper, with Jeremy Mook retiring with an engine issue, Papa Lonju retiring early on due to an undisclosed fault, same with Christian Zorner, Johnny Sathoros in 23rd, and Wozniak, the new entry for this weekend, unfortunately having a few Malwarebytes related issues, which then unfortunately got it disqualified, and that was a game disqualifying him because he came in and came out again. That's not obviously anything that's been applied by us. So remember, kids, if you're going to do your Malwarebytes and your virus scans, do it before or after your league races. Don't do it between. Just turn them off. I know it's not a good idea, it's just easier to.
Yeah, very true.
I'd say that was a public service announcement. For more information, go to
www.racedepartment.com/PC safety.
Yes, and more as well. Go and join Race Department if you want to come and do some fantastic racing. We have great racing all over the loads of different series. You know, it's not just Automobilista. We've got race room racing experience. You know, we've got Project Cars. We've got loads of the sims, all of the great sims. Sounding too much like Donald Trump then, but we do have a fantastic community. Come and join us. If you've not signed up before, you get a few actual races to test, to actually join our community, come and try it out. And then if you're enjoying it, then you can come and pay something like €10 for a year of membership, which you can get your name changed, so you can have an alias name. You get some driving tutorage sessions as well. It's a great thing to come and join us with, so I'd love to see you out on track. And I'll tell you what, I've thoroughly enjoyed this race as ever, Peter Lee. Thank you for having me alongside you in the box, but it has been a fantastic race as ever. And Ferdinand Lechner, well, we've got to say, he's got to win the championship.
With a performance like that, you'd be foolhardy to bet against him. That is certainly true. And until then, we will join you in 2 weeks' time, I believe, for the finale at Alton Park. We will see if Lechner can indeed repeat his performance he has now accomplished 4 times by winning this race. And until then, we will see you in 2 weeks' time for Alton Park. Goodbye.